I think it is being like online and being anonymous, because it's like you always have that like veil in front of you, especially if like the girl doesn't know who you are. Like you can kind of flirt with them and ask them on a date, and it's like, you know, you could be Prince Charming for all the woman streamer knows. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like I think it's always like it's almost like that idea of like being drunk, I guess, where it's like your drunk actions or your sober thoughts or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I've heard that said before. I feel like that is the same online, where it's like you can say literally whatever you want, and if you get banned, then you get banned and you try to get in another channel.
The world can be a hostile and uncomfortable place for women. It's arguably impossible for men to understand the experience of being a woman. We have an extraordinary amount of privileges that women don't have. We can exist in our daily lives without too much fear of harassment, have our opinions heard and validated by others without much pushback, feel valued for our skill without having to prove ourselves, walk through a parking lot at night without much fear, or being accused of our appearance being an invitation for would-be attackers. That isn't to say that this is universal, of course. There are men who have experienced these things, but they're some of the many things that women have to be conscious of almost every day of their lives, to the point where I personally can't conceive how maddening that would be. Women endure more judgments and scrutiny than men. It's a simple fact, and if one was to deny it, they in turn should rightfully be accused of refusing to try and see things from another's perspective. In the past decade, Twitch.tv has become the largest live streaming platform in the world. The site receives millions of viewers each month who in turn spend billions of hours consuming content from streamers. The site was originally established as a means to live stream video games, but as it's grown, Twitch has included a wide variety of categories for viewers and streamers to choose from, like making music, creating art, cooking, or even just chatting with viewers. With this growth has come an increase in viewers and an increase in streamers, including those who are established and ones who are trying to make a name for themselves. Since its early days, Twitch has been a platform with a demographic consisting mostly of young males. As of last year, 65% of its users identified as men, and 73% of which are under the age of 35. Twitch has also seen a large influx in women streamers in the past few years, some of which have become the largest names on the platform, bringing in tens of thousands of viewers every day and earning substantial amounts of money from various revenue sources, including support from viewers. However, much like any field that's male-dominated, women on Twitch have run into some challenges. Some men have seen their increasing presence on the platform as encroaching on territory that doesn't belong to them, that they need to prove themselves as worthy as the prominent male figures on the platform, show that they have skills or that they're able to entertain just as well. There are also those who believe that since this is a platform made for men, that the women who do appear on it do so for male validation, to pander to their needs, whether that be emotional or even sexual, serve as wish fulfillment and capitulate to their desires. It's also been the case that since streamers, particularly the smaller ones, can be reliant on income from their viewers, this dynamic has resulted in male viewers exploiting and abusing power they potentially hold over women streamers. What I want to look at in this video is how platforms like Twitch not only facilitate male entitlement, but allows it to thrive far more than it does in everyday life, and in some cases encourages it. How the veil of anonymity the internet offers allows men to engage in vulgar and predatory behaviors without any fear of repercussion, and along the way I want to share the experiences and thoughts women streamers have had while attempting to maintain their image and their career, despite those who would make them feel objectified and unsafe. Let's take a look at women on Twitch and male entitlement.
I know you know that I love you wherever you go, wherever you go.
What's going to happen to this? It's plastic. It's just going to exist in the world for a long time, just like all the other ones I've thrown away. Sure, I'm recycling, but that has its own impact. I could just refill it, but I'd just be buying a larger plastic bottle, and I can't just refill the refill. It's a vicious cycle. How do you break it? I've been trying my best to be more conscious about my impact on the environment, and it can be tough to do. It's impossible to calculate how the things that you need to do on a daily basis can contribute to pollution, and even though corporations are largely responsible for climate change, it's still good to do what you can as an individual to help things, even if that means reducing the amount of plastic that you use. And given how many cleaning products the average person can go through in, let's say, the space of a month, it's tricky. However, recently I switched to using Blueland for many of my cleaning needs, as they offer quality cleaning products that are friendly on the environment that don't require you to throw away any plastics when you're done with them. They provide you with a selection of labeled bottles that you can use forever with no single-use plastics that get thrown away, from its container to its packaging. How do they manage this? Simple. Instead of liquid, they send you these nickel-sized tablets. You fill your forever bottle with warm water, put in the tablet, let it fully dissolve, then put the lid back on. Easy as that. No shaking or stirring required. The tablets themselves are EPA certified, made with clean ingredients that are made without ammonia, VOC, soy and nut, chlorine bleach, and parabens. They're also vegan friendly and cruelty free. Blueland also saves you money in the long run. Something like a single-use plastic bottle of hand soap can set you back $5, but with Blueland it's just $2 per tablet, and it gets even cheaper when you buy in bulk. You can get a variety of starter kits from Blueland. For mine, I got the Clean Essentials, which came with the Iris Agave scented hand soap, multi-surface cleaner, bathroom cleaner, and glass and mirror cleaner, which is especially great since I have cats that insist on stepping and touching on anything that's shiny. I really like everything that I've tried from Blueland, and I'm definitely done with using single-use cleaning products thanks to them. If you would like to make the change, you can save 20% on a starter kit and another 20% by using my promo code and visiting blueland.com/Salari. Overall, that's a saving of 40%. I'm not good at maths, okay? They ship to the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. So go to blueland.com/Salari, or you can click on the link below and make the change today. Since this is a video about women and their experiences, you may be asking, Salari, what would you, a cis straight man, know about the things women experience in their lives beyond what you've heard from them? And to that I would say, you are 100% correct, which is why for this video, I reached out to a handful of women who have been streaming on Twitch for a few years and have a substantial audience. This includes MaryMaybe, Nezba, and Tayraeiscray, or Tay. We spent hours talking about their experiences as a woman on the platform, what kind of interactions they've had with men, both good and bad, and the extent that some will go to get their attention. I also asked them for their opinions on why some men feel that it's okay for them to behave the way they do, and what can possibly be done to make things better, both on Twitch and on a societal level. They have gone above and beyond in making this video a reality, and everything that you'll hear has been informed in some way by their input. In a world in which men hold the lion's share of all power, it's not at all surprising that many of them wish for more and believe that they deserve more by virtue of being a man. Society, media, and various other institutions have taught men in all kinds of ways that they're deserving of the things that they want, whether that's to excel academically, find success in a career, become financially well off, or indeed find love. They are often taught that they need to put effort into achieving these things, which can often lead to disappointment and even despair when it turns out that they're not capable of attaining that which they were allegedly destined for, resulting in men who will on some occasions lash out at the world for cheating them out of a fate that belonged to them, and possibly blame others for impeding their progress. To an extent, they can't be blamed for that feeling of being dismayed. If you were taught from birth that you would inevitably get something you deserve and put in the effort for it, anyone would feel disappointed, regardless of gender and privilege. However, it goes without saying that this is not an excuse for the extent some people go to attempt to claim the rewards that they believe belong to them. Both men and women have been raised on a steady diet of movies, TV shows, and music that offer a skewed and often dangerous perspective on the dynamics of trying to find a partner. They've been known to romanticize aspects of love that would in reality be considered creepy and at times illegal. Most notably, the idea that if a man wants to win a woman's affections, then all they have to do is persist, even if that means resorting to stalking or invading her privacy. This approach is not only glamorized from the male perspective, with the protagonist being a self-insert in the media, but from the women's perspective too, showing what it would be like to be desired by someone who would go to such drastic lengths just to prove how much they want to be with you. There is, of course, nothing wrong with wanting to be seen as desirable, but the reality is that doing things like following a woman around without their knowledge, stumbling into them by accident, or performing grand gestures in front of others to prove yourself isn't romantic. It's a disturbing invasion on a woman's personal space that applies a tremendous amount of pressure on them and assumes that their wants and desires can be manipulated by a man given enough time and effort. It's only in recent years that people have begun to accept that this kind of depiction of winning a woman's affections is deeply unsettling, and it was even scrutinized more thoroughly by the Netflix show You, in which we see the disturbing reality of what these so-called protagonists go through to gain a potential paramour. It's just a shame that everything else about the show is complete garbage. One of the things that I really want to stress though is that actions such as stalking and harassment, although difficult for a woman to deal with and often traumatic, can have consequences for a man who is doing it, and it can be simpler to deal with compared to how it is in a space like the internet. Also, I want to put a huge asterisk on that "can be simpler" part of the statement. This is all case by case, and there are plenty of occasions where dealing with these problems is absolutely not simple, just to make that clear. Men can be rejected in person, women can say that they're not interested in them and hope that they'll understand. They can even potentially face embarrassment upon being rejected, which can dissuade them from trying to persist. In far more extreme cases, legal action can be taken upon men who continue to persist. A stalker could end up being arrested, have a restraining order placed on them, or, depending on the situation, they could be put on a registry. Many of these have tangible consequences, like if they were to apply for a job, an apartment, move into a new neighborhood, or even get a loan. They'd have to disclose these things, and there is a high likelihood of being rejected as a result. On the internet, however, the fear of backlash for the average person is almost non-existent. If you're just a member of the general public, you can get away with doing and saying a lot of things, and the most drastic consequence you can face is being banned from a platform. There are some extreme cases in which people have threatened violence or worse and had to deal with the authorities when it was reported, but this is a rarity. Throughout history, most people who have made statements on the internet that would get them into trouble in real life haven't really had to experience any real consequences. You could argue that cancelling is a consequence some face, but we're talking about the average person here, not a public figure. With the absence of consequence comes the absence of accountability and even guilt, and as such, people will take advantage of these conditions. Think of it in terms of questions about morality, like, would you steal from someone if you knew no one would find out about it? Or even something more drastic, like, would you murder someone you hate if you knew that you could get away with it? Although someone wouldn't have to worry about any immediate punishment for these acts, many would consider the morality and the possible long-lasting psychological effects of committing an act that they know to be wrong. Without having to worry too much about the consequences, the internet has for a long time now been a space in which people can indulge in these worst aspects of themselves. They can present themselves as a stranger and talk to other strangers, and should they wish, they can say things that they wouldn't dream of saying to another person's face. And once they've done so, they can just move on with the rest of their day, possibly having been banned from the platform they're talking on, but that's not a big deal really. The size of a platform can be a large part of the problem here. Places like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and indeed Twitch, along with any other site where there are visitors engaging with each other, deal with such a colossal amount of traffic every moment of the day that active moderation can be extremely hard. There are some systems in place which screen for certain offensive words, but those are just individual words, not sentiments. If you're not a complete stranger on the internet and have become some sort of figure or influencer, whatever you want to call it, you have to deal with more interactions from the public than the average person does. Women online, especially on predominantly male platforms like Twitch, have a much larger target on them for harassment by virtue of them, well, being a woman, sadly, is made especially more difficult and hostile when said women are also playing video games. Yet another male-dominated space which has had a long history of animosity towards women who are supposedly invading it. I really need to give up on doing air quotes. For example, in a lot of multiplayer games, many women will often go out of their way to hide their gender identity, whether this is through a feminine-sounding username or avoiding using voice communication so as to not garner unwanted attention from men.
I had to change my username because I hated people knowing that I'm a girl, for one, and two, I'm a streamer, because they tend to grief me more.
Yeah.
Like, they would run it down, and it's hard for me to play the game. I just want to play the game without, like, being discriminated because I'm either a girl or because they know I'm a streamer and stuff. So I actually disguised my name as, well, everyone knows now because I've been using this username for 2 years now. I just disguise myself and try to make it sound boyish so no one will pay any attention to me.
These spaces may be dominated largely by men, but in the most part they weren't made with the intention of catering to men. But like any marketplace, the largest consumers dictate what's popular, and on Twitch that includes men streamers who are skilled and or good at entertaining, and women who cater to men's desires, regardless of whether that was their intention. And if it isn't, they still face criticism from the same men who elevate their platform if they're unable to cater to their needs, which, as it turns out, is impossible.
We get hit by how we look. So it's like, are we not feminine enough, or are we too masculine? Do they have boobs? Are they showing their boobs? Are they showing cleavage? It's very like you're teetering on the line of what's acceptable. Am I too girly for them to take me seriously, or am I too masculine for them to take me seriously? So it's just that they just don't listen either way, and they just don't want to admit it that they don't like women.
If you know anything about Twitch, you'll be fully aware that a streamer's ability to earn an income can be largely dependent on their audience for it. Whether that's through donations, bits, or paid subscriptions which unlock additional benefits. There are other means in which they can earn money, such as ads and sponsorships, but for smaller streamers, this often isn't an option. The amount streamers receive can vary drastically. The majority of their support is from smaller donations, but on some occasions they've been known to receive substantial amounts of money. In my interviews with these women, I asked whether larger donors were more likely to ask for something in return for their support, such as more direct access, pics, videos, etc. But to my surprise, it turned out that the smaller donors were the ones to ask for these, even going as far as asking them to send used underwear in exchange for a $5 subscription, of which the streamer only keeps $2.50.
They're like, I'll send you $5 and you send me your panties. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, it's a bit insulting, to be honest.
A little bit, yeah. Honestly, even if someone was to give their underwear away, offering only $5, do you know how much underwear costs these days? Jesus Christ. Depending on the size of the audience a streamer may have, a large donation may be life-changing, or at the very least allow them to continue streaming full-time. They could put more money towards their production value, or even just cover the costs in their lives, like rent or healthcare. Because of this dynamic though, it can put them in a compromising position when a donor asks something of them in return which might infringe upon their comfort or even privacy. When a woman streamer does receive donations, even then it can be the case where they're criticized for simply doing what everyone else is doing on Twitch. They're accused of using their looks or even friendliness to convince men to give them money. The idea that some people donate to women just to financially support their work that they enjoy without an ulterior motive doesn't even cross the mind for some men. To them, women on Twitch are invaders who are only interested in taking money from lonely men whose only intent is to get closer to them, a sentiment that not only is insulting towards women, but to men too, as it implies that the only reason to interact with or support a woman is to eventually try and win them over.
But I'm aware that people may or may not donate for a specific reason, but I am not giving them that reason. They are giving themselves that reason. I am hoping as there's my cat, as another male, that you would hope that the guys that are donating to me or doing these things for me are not doing it just for one reason. I would like to think that they're doing it just because they have a good time in my stream, they enjoy my content, it's fun. It's not just for one reason, because you're basically saying that you're yourself, if you're calling that out, only see women as being sexual when you can't see them as anything else. So I'm like, you're outing yourself, and you're also shitting on men for acting like you guys can't, you're only like these sexual your guys are so sexual and you only want one thing from women. So I'm like, you're shitting on women and you're shitting on being a male at the same time, which I don't like. So either way, boop.
It's the archaic notion that men and women can't possibly have a long-term dynamic that won't inevitably result in romance. And in the context of Twitch, that suggests that all of these men are competing against each other to see who will eventually win the streamer's attention. Oh my god, stop the air quotes. This kind of mentality is part of the idea that women on Twitch exist by the terms set by men. Male streamers do have pressures of their own, this goes without saying, but with women there's the impression that they have to prove that they deserve to be there, that they're not just using the fact that they're conventionally attractive to get money from men, that they're charismatic and able to cater to male fantasies of being able to talk to a pretty woman without being judged. There's also this notion that men can interact with women on Twitch in ways that they wouldn't with a woman in real life, or at least I hope they wouldn't, often by sending unsolicited, sexually charged, creepy messages. Like, here's a message that I saw. Check out Discount William Blake here.
You're beautiful. I don't think I've told you that in a while. Your heart-shaped face, your sultry jawline and cheekbones, your elegant swan neck, and your eyes, those gorgeous caramel autumn pools of hazel. They drive me crazy when I'm not being careful. I saw your Twitter post about the tits. Listen, your body is divine. It's immaculate. There are plenty of guys, me included, who think your slim, thick body is dreamy. But I'm not going to be crass about your cake. I'm sure you get that enough.
Quick question, when do we start likening butts to cakes? Like, who out there looks at a cake and thinks to themselves, yeah, I'd like to get all up in that. Also, I made a Victoria sponge for that bit. Surely that's worth at least one patron that's new. How women present themselves on camera is also scrutinized by men frequently. If they wear clothing that shows some skin, they're doing it for donations. If they're covering up or dressed comfortably, they're being too conservative. Too much makeup, then they're trying too hard. Too little makeup, they need to try harder. If they're being friendly or bubbly, it's interpreted as romantic interest. If they're quieter or don't interact too much, then they're being cold. Women on Twitch can ignore these criticisms, and many do, including the people I spoke to, but they still exist, and men feel safe making these criticisms because they can. And there are plenty of videos on places like YouTube that exist purely to be critical of women streamers and how they present themselves. And they're made because they cater to an audience that believes that they have the right to say what women should be like on their platform, and make demands of what they should offer them in addition to streaming, including pressuring them to branch out into other sites like OnlyFans to offer more explicit content, a request that is practically never asked of male streamers. In other words, to be frank, there's no fucking winning. Welcome aboard the Boost Bus, the segment in each video where I take a moment to use my platform to promote other creators and their work, and encourage you to support them. This time I want to do something a little bit different and take this opportunity to ask you to support the 3 people who helped make this video a reality. MaryMaybe, Nezba, and Tayraeiscray. Mary is on a never-ending quest to climb the ladder in League of Legends, and on occasions plays a selection of other games. Nezba is a late-night community streamer who also loves horror games, and Tay is also a late-night streamer who plays a wide variety of games and loves interacting with her audience. They're all very entertaining to watch and just incredibly nice people in general. So for this video, I'd like to ask you to lend your support to them as a thank you for making this project happen, and because they're good at what they do. Give them a follow, and if you're able to, maybe become a subscriber or donate to help support them and their work. You'll find links to them in the description below. Since I've changed things up for this episode, for the next one I'll be promoting 2 creators, so if you're someone who likes making things and would like it showcased on the channel, by all means send one email to salarivideo@gmail.com with the subject Boost. Please be sure to include your pronouns, a short bio about yourself and your work, links to socials and your site if applicable, and if you work as something like an artist, please be sure to send high quality samples of your work so they can be showcased in the video. I won't be able to reply to all of your emails since the volume I'm receiving is quite high, but rest assured they are all being read. Anyway, I need to stop the bus. There's a couple making out in the back and I'm worried they're about to transition into some hand stuff. Why did I do the gesture? Although it's important to explore what it is that compels men to behave in such creepy and invasive ways on Twitch, it's extremely important to discuss how this kind of behavior affects women who are on the receiving end of their treatment. At this point, it's no secret that even in their daily lives, women are the target of harassment from men in both subtle and overt ways, and men may be unaware or fully aware of what they're doing in this respect. Regardless of this, they do so because of their conditioning. They've been informed from a young age that this is what you do to gain the attention of women. The difference being that the unaware do so because they don't know any better, whereas the aware persist in hopes that they'll get some kind of reaction, be it negative or positive, because either way, it's attention from a woman that they're interested in. Of course, one is more forgivable than the other, but that doesn't make it okay. The sad reality is that most women live their lives knowing that this is something that they have to put up with, and as mentioned near the start of the video, men couldn't possibly understand what that means. I know that after saying that, some men might be thinking to themselves, well, I've been harassed before, so I understand. Unfortunately, you don't, because you're not a woman. Let me put it in this way. I've received a bunch of harassment for videos that I've made, including coordinated campaigns on Twitter, trolls on Discord, DMs from people who are angry at something I said, and on some occasions, threats of physical harm and even death threats, especially after that K-pop video, which, if you're angered about someone saying that the people who make the music you like should be treated better, you're kind of a terrible person. I've even gotten some sexual harassment too, with some very imaginative language, which, if I'm entirely honest, I don't understand why, but the point is, it's not the same as women's experiences because the kind of harassment they receive is based on the fact that they are a woman. Yes, some men do put up with harassment because of how they look, and much of it is normalized and accepted because it's assumed that they accept it as compliments. But nonetheless, these instances aren't as widespread as what women face on a daily basis, and on the internet, people being able to hide behind a username has allowed them to supercharge their harassment. Some people think that since this harassment occurs online, it'll more than likely stay online, that it's just people saying things they have no intention of following through with, but this is entirely wrong. The women I spoke to all shared experiences with me about the lengths some harassers would go to try and get close to them, including traveling long distances, staying in nearby places, and attempting to coerce them into meeting. There are countless cases of women on Twitch, both large and small, who have been victims of stalking. One high-profile case was with streamer Brooke AB, who went on a 6-month hiatus from streaming due to her horrific experiences with multiple harassers and stalkers, who threatened not just her, but everyone in her life with doxing, bodily harm, arson, job loss, abuse, murder, and far more. The experience was frightening and serious enough that the FBI eventually had to get involved. But after finding some level of safety, the trauma of these events can persist, possibly forever. Brooke AB has a substantial audience of 1.3 million followers, and the larger you are, the bigger target you become for things such as harassment. Smaller women streamers can be placed in a far more compromising position though, since they may not have the resources or platform to combat harassment should it occur. It mirrors the real-life experience where the less power you have as an individual, the less likely you are to find some form of justice or support. Of course, I am not trying to minimize the experiences that larger streamers have had with harassment, but the truth is that women on Twitch with smaller audiences are far more vulnerable, and people will attempt to exploit that vulnerability.
Do you feel like this will always be an unavoidable part of the job?
Definitely. When it comes to like someone's obsession and then they stalk you and try to find you and stuff. It's, if anything, it's more dangerous than like a celebrity because you don't have like the funds, the money to do it unless you're like the #1 streamer. It's gonna be rough for people that can't like support themselves with safety measurements and stuff. So I don't know. It's just streaming is pretty dangerous in its own way with like stalkers and stuff.
With a lack of access to resources to combat harassment and stalking, many smaller women streamers are left to fend for themselves or consult other streamers at a similar level to them. They can possibly attempt to get the authorities involved, but many instances of online harassment are completely ignored by the police or seen as someone overreacting to attention, especially with women who frequently have their pleas ignored, a fact which in itself makes men more comfortable engaging in such activities. Consulting others doesn't always yield desirable results though. There was a particular incident that Tay shared with me that was incredibly telling about how women are expected to react when receiving money from donors who overstep their bounds.
I've had instances where someone donated a not small amount of money, like a pretty hefty some amount of money. And I was shocked and I was like, oh my God, is this real? Then later I found out like about a week later, they had tried to add me on both Facebook and LinkedIn. And I was like sobbing. I was in tears. I was like, how did they find me? Like, what am I going to do? And then the most disappointing part too, is I went to like other streamers and I went to other male streamers like for advice. And I was like, oh my God, has this ever happened to you? Like, what should I do? And they're like, well, first of all, you should be lucky that anybody donated that much money to you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like this person like completely violated my privacy and I should be lucky. Like, I was just so shocked. And they're like, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's just one person. Just like do whatever you think is best. And I'm like, well, do you think I should ban them? And they're like, after they gave you that much money? And I was like, that's not like the thing that's in contention here. Like, I can give them the money back. It's not a big deal. So I could have easily just like refunded it to them, or if they asked for it back after I banned them, I would have done that as well. But yeah, I literally had to just like figure it out on my own at that point, because the people who I was asking for advice were just like, well, shouldn't you be lucky to receive that money? And shouldn't you be lucky that somebody is like that interested in you and all that kind of thing? I think that's like where like a lot of men will demonize like female streamers, is because they're nice and outgoing and sweet, they naturally kind of get that attention a little bit more, like the interest in men. And then male streamers will see that and be like, well, at least you're getting attention. At least you have viewers. At least you have people who are in your chat. It's like, I don't want people who are in my chat calling me princess and like baby girl and sweet cheeks. It's like, we're trying to play a video game. Like,
Therein lies the problem, that even when faced with an invasion of privacy and what it could possibly lead to, many fail to recognize it. They just see someone who's fortunate, that because there's a person out there who's willing to invest so much in a woman, having their personal details be known is a small price in exchange. That they should compromise their comfort and possibly their integrity for money. Ultimately, there's also a layer of sexism there that assumes women only stream for financial gain and not because they enjoy it, that they should tolerate invasive or unwanted behaviors so long as it earns them money and attention, or be pressured into stepping out of their comfort zones to appeal to the needs of men, and at the end of the day it's made all the more worse when they simply have to accept that it's part of the job. If they're to do the thing that they love, they'll have to subject themselves to harassment, invasions of privacy, coercion, and more, all the while being told by men that they're bringing it upon themselves and should be glad of the attention. It's victim blaming, pure and simple. And as I said earlier, even though men are subject to some level of harassment, the double standard is very real, and it's something women sadly have had to learn to tolerate. The treatment of women streamers, despite being tolerated to some extent, ultimately does have long-term effects. The women I spoke to mentioned how they've developed trust issues when it comes to their interactions. A person they're talking to can at one moment be seemingly normal, the next they may be sending inappropriate or disturbing messages. There were numerous mentions of how their moderators revealed to these women that they were only helping them in order to get closer to them. Regular viewers who had similar sentiments, and men using friendliness in general as a means of getting closer rather than just being friendly. It's a difficult reality for a person to live in when they have to wonder if a person they're talking to has an ulterior motive, and it's one women have to live with regularly, even in their everyday interactions with men. The sad thing is that ultimately, men are just letting themselves down with this kind of behavior. Instead of trying to be a part of a community, they compete with each other for attention. If another man donates and another man comments on how they did it to get closer to the streamer, they're essentially saying that the support they're offered is done with the intent of something in return. And like I said earlier, it's rooted in this completely outdated belief that men and women can't be friends, that a platonic relationship isn't possible, and the end goal should be trying to enter a relationship with them. Men consistently misread women, especially when they're being friendly, and being friendly is part of the job of being a streamer, and in general there's this expectation that women should present themselves as friendly, otherwise they're perceived as being cold. It's a double-edged sword for them. They have to be friendly, but they have to be wary of that friendliness being misinterpreted as something such as romantic interest or flirtation. By maintaining this level of distrust, men just make it harder to actually connect with women and potentially form a meaningful relationship that doesn't involve wanting to be intimate with them. And it definitely doesn't help that the friend zone stigma still exists, and friendship with a woman is seen as failing to seal the deal, so to speak. It also makes it harder for men who actually just want to make friends with women. I myself have mostly had women friends throughout my life. I tend to connect with them better than I do with men, probably because men are about as emotionally open as a robot designed to behave like a distant dad. But every time I've started to talk to a woman and develop a friendship with them with no intention to start dating, there's always been this part in the back of my head that worries, am I giving off the wrong signals? Does she think I'm interested in her in that way? Am I crossing any boundaries? Is my friendliness being misinterpreted? Should I ask for contact details, or does that send the wrong message? I know that this is probably overthinking things, but it happens, and it sucks that the experience of trying to make a friend can be soured by the behaviors of others. But honestly, women can't be blamed for feeling apprehensive when it comes to male attention. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's really just sad to think of all the valuable platonic relationships so many people could have had because they failed to see a woman's value as a friend. So how do we make things better? How can women feel more comfortable both on sites like Twitch and in real life? What can we do to teach men that they're not entitled to a woman's affections just because they feigned being friendly or given them nice things? Well, if we look at the conditions of society and how men are encouraged to Okay, I think that looking at how men see women and believe that For starters, if we address toxic masculinity and see where... Haha, it's the funny bit where the YouTuber drinks to cope with the pain. Yeah. Okay, let's be real. Okay. Okay, you know, when I write these videos, I try my best to understand the people that I'm ideologically at odds with, to see things through their eyes and tell them that I hear them and possibly, hopefully, help others try to be compassionate and avoid admonishing them. I don't think it's always fair to deem someone stupid or willingly ignorant just because they think differently, especially in a world where there are powers at work who put a tremendous amount of effort into promoting ignorance while disguising it as wisdom. I try to pass on the idea that people may behave in harmful ways because that's what they've been taught and shouldn't necessarily have to put the blame entirely on them. It's good to be sympathetic, even with those that you don't agree with, because you can't really appeal to people if all you're going to do is let them know how much you dislike them for who they are and what they represent. In this instance, though, I struggled, and ultimately I believe I may have failed. Because the further I explored this subject, the more women I spoke to, the more experiences they shared with me, and the more I saw how it affected them, the less excusable the actions of these men became. And although their socialization, media, and the culture of masculinity played a role in who they are, there is a point which you have to be held accountable for your own actions, and many of these men are beyond that threshold. So, while the blame for how men are taught to behave belongs to the ideas of masculinity, the representation of dynamics between men and women in media, and a culture which enables such terrible behaviors in men. Despite all this, these men need to be held accountable for their actions, because at the end of the day, it's their choice to act this way. There are plenty of men who have been told by women time and time again that they are making them feel uncomfortable, but they still persist, sometimes with the same woman, sometimes with different women. There are men who have been told that they're being gross or creepy and they need to stop, but they still keep trying. There are men that send pics of their junk to women, women that they barely know, and express no interest in them in hopes that it'll be enough to sleep with them. A tactic which I can only assume has never worked, and I can't imagine there will be a future in which people tell their grandkids that their love story started with a dick pic. It's super common too. In fact, ask any woman in your life whether they've received an unsolicited dick pic. I guarantee you that at least one of them will say that they have. I know my wife has. I know some ex-girlfriends have. It's disgusting. The point is, men, that this isn't right, and if you've been told by women over and over again that what you're doing is wrong, then you're the problem, and you need to take accountability for your actions. You're making people feel unsafe and uncomfortable. You're refusing to understand things from another perspective. You're being selfish, and you're diminishing the value of women and even men, including yourself. In fact, just give me one moment. I actually designed a very simple and easy to understand flowchart to help you in the future if you need to figure out if you're harassing someone. So one sec, I'll be right back. Okay, back again. Here I am. All right, so if you need to figure out if you're harassing someone. So it starts here with, are you making someone feel uncomfortable? And if your answer is no, continue. You're doing a great job. Excellent. Good work. If the answer is yes, though, then stop doing what you're doing. Distance yourself from the person and, if possible, apologize. It's really that easy. I even put a print-friendly PDF in the description of the video, but ideally, you shouldn't need it. And if you're someone who is wondering if I'm talking to you directly, then yes, I am. Otherwise you wouldn't be wondering. I'm sure I'm talking to someone who stumbled across this video while searching for one of the thousands upon thousands of videos on YouTube that criticize women on Twitch for using their looks and their bodies to get money. And even though that's undeniably true for some women, 1, that's their choice. 2, it doesn't mean every woman does the same thing. You're just angry at women for existing, and you're angry because they don't want to date you. Wonder why? I'm not trying to be mean or put people down, but screw it. Brutal honesty sometimes requires brutal words. You know you're doing something wrong. It genuinely depressed me having to hear some of these experiences. It's depressed me when I heard similar experiences from my wife or friends who are women, and the fact is that men like you are 100% responsible for this. Women never asked to be treated this way, and the world is a worse place because you refuse to see what you're doing wrong or listen to the women on the receiving end. You know, the further I got into this project, the more depressed I got, thinking about the reality of these women's lives. I was already aware to some extent as to what women have to tolerate in their lives when it comes to their interactions with men, but the fact that they receive such a frequent amount of unwanted attention to the point of becoming numb to just continue what they do made me sad, and further highlighted that there's no way I could fully understand the experience of a woman, and is made all the more worse when you consider how many men refuse to understand. The women I spoke to were all wonderful people who I truly enjoyed talking with, and it breaks my heart to know that this is part of their lives, that it's something that women in your life have to tolerate. Whether it's your partner, co-worker, sister, or even mother, they'll all have had the attention of men that they didn't welcome, and they deserve better than that. I am embarrassed to share a gender with these men, to be in their presence when they're out of earshot of women and they ask me to agree with their perverse thoughts about what they'd like to do to a woman who's passing by and getting on with their day. And thanks to the internet, they now get to share these sentiments with women directly without fear of receiving a slap to the face or a look of disgust. Look, I know that you're probably feeling a little bit sour right now, and there's a chance I would be too if I were in your shoes. You probably clicked on this video after seeing the title, knowing that you were going to disagree with I or the women I spoke to had to say, and I expect that some of you will want to scroll down to the comments and make some flimsy defense or even insult me, but by all means, go ahead. Call me a simp, a cuck, a soy boy, white knight, whatever you want. I do not care. It doesn't mean a thing to me coming from you because at the end of the day, I would rather be any of those things than be like you. You know what you're doing is wrong. Do better. As simple as that. Jesus Christ. My God. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, then please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. It really does make a difference. If you would like to support the channel further on Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/Salari. You'll see a link to it in the description, and there's also going to be a link at the very end of the video as well, so watch out for those. All these wonderful people you see scrolling up here, they're all putting a bit each month to help the channel and keep it going. And also there is the $5 tier, which people can get their names read out, including the following kind people. That includes Alicia Crawford, Seva Olafsson, Maurice Robert, Candide, Dan McCrary, Remy Allen, Daniel Perrone, Freeman Killer, Lizzie Peasy, Insella Sacra, Paulius Jonases, Grant B, Jay, Jordan Christoph, Matthew Torres, Rage, Enrique Gutierrez, Mergogo Fashionable, Alina, Ratums, Games, Martina, Sander Panda, Ashton the Platypus, CB Hart, Kevin Corber, Lillian Roan, Sharfay, Nostracon, Lexi Weiss, Mickey Buonadonna, Sparrow Wagon, Tamara, Marius Stubberud, Hawaiian Juicebox, Your Sweet Pea, Catherine, and Steve Marr. Thank you all so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me. If you would like to support me as well, any amount goes a long way, and it's all put back into the channel and helping it grow. My cat just started eating, if you can hear noises in the background. Also, I've got the Patreon question of the video, and this is from Hawaiian Juicebox, who asks, if you do drink alcohol, what is your favorite drink, and or what alcohol will you never drink or even try? despite what you saw in the video earlier, I don't actually drink. I've never even been drunk. At most I can tolerate a bit of red wine, and maybe a margarita mix, but most alcohol tastes like battery acid to me, especially things like beers and stuff like that. That stuff's disgusting. Ones I'd never try, I've actually tried quite a lot of alcohol despite everything. Like, I've even tried absinthe, which is supposed to be like one of the stronger ones, and moonshine as well, which that stuff can strip the paint off a boat's hull. It's awful. But yeah, like I say, I'm not a drinker, to be honest. Maybe one day I'll get drunk. Maybe I'll do it on stream or something. Speaking of which, you can watch me at twitch.tv/jsalari. And also, if you want, you can join the Discord as well. Here's a link in the description. Lots of wonderful people there. They're all very active. Over 600 people there now. And yeah, they're all super friendly and welcoming. And it's a great place to share your work as well if you're an artist, musician, etc. But yeah, feel free to join. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching once again. Oh, and thank you to the 3 people that helped make this video happen. MaryMaybe, Nezba, and Tay. All tremendously wonderful people, and this wouldn't have happened without them. Sorry, my cat's trying to get on my lap. Go on. Yep. You're happy now? Okay. So yeah, thank you very much to them. Like I said, this video wouldn't have been possible or anywhere near as good as it ended up being. And I really can't thank them enough. Go follow them on Twitch and all the other stuff that they have. Links to their things are in the description. Yeah, they deserve your support. But thank you once again. I need to wrap this up. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Be nice to each other, and I will see you next time, okay? Bye-bye. Okay.